Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cage Conversations podcast, the podcast where I yap and play video games for the enjoyment of my girlfriend. Um, so a little update, right? I bought that $60 plugin that I mentioned in one of the videos to improve the audio on Audacity, and yeah, I don't think it worked or I didn't use it properly, so we're just back to square one. So I will figure out another way to do this and fix this up. But that's the situation. Today we are playing Marvel Rivals, because the topic today is about Marvel Rivals. So, um, because my girlfriend, she does not really play video games and everything, I'm going to break things down a lot more simply than what I would do if I was talking to any other person that actually does like play Marvel Rivals or any other video games regularly, right? Because that's not, she does not do that. So I'm going to break things down a little bit more, right? So, first of all, Marvel Rivals is a hero shooter. And essentially, what that means is that uh, it's unlike a regular shooter where everybody can, do the same things. Essentially, it's just based off of what weapon you have. Uh, you know, different guns have different properties, of course, but essentially every character can do the same thing. It's really just based off of how good you are at aiming. Depends on how good you are at the game. This game, and other hero shooters like it, like Overwatch, it's a situation where every character has different abilities and different skills, and no character is the same. So there's different team combinations. It's a 6v6 game, and different team combinations, different matchups. That's how the game works. When I say different team combinations, different matchups, people call that the meta, right? Which characters do well against which other characters, which characters do best when they're on a team together, that kind of thing. And, through constant updates of the game and everything, that helps distinguish and change the meta so that the game stays fresh and that there isn't one dominant strategy throughout the life cycle of this game, right? So that is essentially a situation with what Marvel Rivals is and what a meta is. And one of the things that is interesting about Marvel Rivals and other hero shooters is the fact that there is a huge amount of ego and pride that a lot of players have, right? So, when you're playing a when you're playing football with your friends, right, and someone says you can't be quarterback anymore because that more likely than not, they're saying that you can't play quarterback anymore because you're not playing that position well, right? You are doing bad at the position that you're been meant to play, so you need to switch off and do something else or sit on the bench. Now, that is not the case when we're talking about hero shooters necessarily, right? Sometimes if someone says that you need to switch off of a different character and switch to a different character, they're not saying that you need to do that because you're bad. It could just be that the character you're playing as does not work well with the team that everyone else with the team cohesion, or doesn't work well with the matchup against the other team, right? But despite that, people still think for whatever reason when someone tells them to switch that they're telling them to switch because and they're insulting their skills at being able to play the game, and so they get upset about it, they feel sensitive about it, and some of them, they refuse to switch because they have so much ego wrapped up in it. And this is like a thing that has, like I said, it's plagued hero shooters, it's plagued Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals apparently it was one of the biggest games when it released a couple years ago, and the numbers have gone down a lot. Not to the point that it's a dying game or anything, but it has gone down a lot. And part of the reason is because of the community. Everyone that I know that talks about why they've gone off of it is because they have to deal with people who are not team minded, right? And so when they're told to switch, they don't, right? They're not trying to play for the benefit of the team. And so, because of that, these people, it makes it more difficult. It makes it harder for everyone else to play the game. And so, a lot of people have left due to the essentially toxic Marvel Rivals community, you know. And I would say that, I have, this is something that I do not personally understand. Um, as you can see on screen, my main character is Penny Parker. She's the character that I have the most amount of time in, and you know, I've played a game a couple months ago where I was playing her, and actually I wasn't playing very well. I was not doing well, and they one of my teammates told me to switch off, and then I did, right? And I switched off, and I just played a healer. That person, they took over and started playing as Penny, and we won the match. And we would not have won the match if I didn't switch, if I decided to have an ego about the situation, right? But other people are not like that. So that's essentially the context of like Marvel Rivals and the like what the game is and the toxicity that is kind of inherent within the game. Unfortunately, at least inherent within the community. And so we get into the actual situation that happened, right? So there was a competition that was held for creators, and essentially it was a bunch of teams that were going to be going against each other, and whichever team got first place, they would win $3,000, right? And so this particular team that we're talking about, although how the teams were done, there was a team captain, and then the team captains just took turns drafting people from from a list from a pool, right? So for the most part, you know, it's not that these teams formed on their own. It's not that these teams, you know, that these people were friends or anything like that. That came together. It is that these people were drafted to work together to be on a team together to compete inside of this competition. So this team that we're talking about, the leader, her name is Cece. And there's two other people that are essentially the only main players inside of the story, which is Zaza and Kingsman, right? And thing about Kingsman is he is the number one Magic player in the world. He is the best at playing Magic. Additionally, he describes himself as a broke college student. So he really wants the money. And my understanding, just based off of other comments that people involved have made, I think he's black. He doesn't show his face, or I have not seen a picture of his face or anything, so I don't know that for sure. But based off the comments that people have made about him, I think that he might be black. So I think that that is relevant to the story. So, as I stated, Kingsman has a high desire to win, right? And CC and Zaza don't. And I think when we're talking about team-based games, team-based, you know, activities or whatever, there's a thing where it comes there's a high desire to win versus a low desire to win. I don't think most people, they don't want to lose, right? But there's a level of motivation, right, that people have. And Kingsman highly motivated to win because he needs this money, right? Cece, though, she's not in college. She has sponsors, right? And for her Twitch. So already has she doesn't need the money, and she's made it clear that, like, you know, yeah, we want to win, but you know, at the end of the day, it's really all about good vibes, right? And it's the high versus low motivation to win that, you know, conflicts with people. And again, if you're and it causes that causes tension whenever inside of a whenever you're inside of a team-based sport, because the people that have high motivation to win are annoyed by the people that have low motivation, and the people that have low motivation are annoyed by the people with high motivation. And you know, when we're talking about, and you would like to think that when you're in that kind of situation, that, you know, as a human being, right, you would recognize, like, okay, this person, I have a low motivation to win, but they have a high motivation, so I'm going to work harder for them, right? But that isn't always the case. And I think it might have been the case, right, if CC, Zaza, and Kingsman were friends, right? I think, you know, you're more willing to try for a friend than someone you don't really know. But in this situation, they're not friends. So the fact that Kingsman had a high motivation to win, uh, it didn't matter to CC and Zaza at all. So all that already causing tension, right? Causes tension within the group. Additionally, there's something that like just needs to be addressed. There's the gender aspect of it. when you are in a situation where, you know, it's a group of women and one dude, and one dude is telling the other group of telling the group of women like y'all need to like get it together, shape up, that kind of thing, like trying to like uh boost up their motivation to win, that kind of thing, boost up their motivation to do something, make them more proactive. That is a situation that a lot of women would find annoying. They would say that you're mansplaining or that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that this is a women thing because the inverse is true as well. I mean, there's a lot of situations that I can think of where a bunch of dudes are hanging around, and there's one girl, and she's like, "Y'all need to get it together. Y'all need to blah 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 blah," and people call her shrill or a bitch or things like that. Those things, right? So there's the gender dynamic where we have this guy telling these women that they need to be operating at a higher level, take things more seriously. And so that also adds to the tension and frustration, right? Additionally, there's the fact that Kingsman is not a popular or creator at this point, right? He does not have a high following, unlike Cece and Zaza. And so most creators are narcissists, right? They have a belief, a very highly inflated sense of self, right? A very high ego. And so there's another sense where like you have someone that you believe that you're better than, and they're trying to tell you what to do, and that also adds to the tension within the group, right? And so that's the tension. So that's like why the tension is growing. But what was the tension growing about, right? Where did this tension even come from? And the tension is coming from the fact that Zaza wants to play a Black Widow, and she also has bad internet connection. But the main thing is the fact that she plays Black Widow, right? Um, and the reason why that caused tension is because if she's not the worst character in the game, she's definitely one of the worst characters in the game. And so Kingsman, he wants, he's concerned about the fact that Zaza is playing this character, and he doesn't think that they have a chance of winning the competition with Black Widow. He makes it clear, I'm not saying that you're not good with Black Widow, but no matter how good you are with Black Widow, even if you were the best Black Widow player, I still don't think that we would win due to how this game works, is what he's trying to communicate, right? And Zaza says, if if we end up struggling, I'll switch. I have other characters that I can play as, but that doesn't seem to happen, right? Because Kingsman, additionally, he wants to practice before the competition. They want to run practice games to see how they work as a team, to come up with team strategies, that kind of thing. And we're in a situation where, he's highly motivated. He wants to do these practices, but the other people on the team, they're coming to the practices late, which is evidence of low motivation to win, right? Um, and he's also coming up with he's trying to Kingsman is trying to present strategies of best team compositions in order to win, and they call him a meta slave, essentially someone that is a slave to the meta of what is the best strategy for the game. That is that is a real term that people use and say, but is also one of the things that, like, if he is black, I think it is insensitive to call him a slave of any kind, even if that is like a regularly used term. So that is like why I do want to that's why I did bring up the whole race thing earlier. But like that's where this tension comes from, right? And so, you know, while they're doing the practices, Kingsman is talking about what they need to, trying to tell them what they need to do in order to best strategize, and saying that he thinks that Zaza needs to switch to a different character, and uh, they are getting annoyed, right, due to the factors that I talked about earlier. And I don't think that them getting annoyed is necessarily a bad thing, because I think that's human, right? I think the factors that I talked about are human. I think that someone being motivated by someone that is higher motivated than them, trying to push them, is something that, like, it's natural to be annoyed by, right? The question is, how do you react to that annoyance, especially when you are, as Cece is, the team captain who is supposed to be the one to keep the team together and like smooth out these issues, right? And what they do, Cece and Zaza, is they bully Kingsman, right? They yell at him, they call him a loser, they tell him to shut the fuck up, they rage bait him, they make fun of him, that kind of thing. And you know, and during the entire time though, Zaza's doing bad in these games. Like in one game, she has 0 kills and 5 deaths, and he's like, I think this is evidence of the fact that we should you should switch. But then, at a certain point though, he stops, right? He's like, I'm not gonna win this argument. Everyone's getting mad at me. He has stopped he has stopped trying to have this conversation with them, but they still keep making comments and trying to rage bait him. And at one point, she does do well in a game. She does get MVP in the game, and she says, and it's the comment is made, right. I can do great. I can do well with Black Widow as long as Kingsman isn't breathing down my neck. Which, on one hand, I get that some people perform worse when they're in high pressure situations, but one, we're training for a competition, so it is a high pressure situation, and two, not something that needed to be said, right? You could have just left it alone, and you could have just, maybe do better at proving yourself, right? If you want to prove yourself, because one game out of 10 that you do well at is does not prove anything, right? And then furthermore, what they do is they go to the tournament manager, they lie about Kingsman, they say that he has, they present clips out of context about him trying to say that Zaza isn't doing well with Black Widow, and they get him kicked out of the tournament. So now he's not even able to compete, and he loses his opportunity to get that $3,000, right? And so that's what happened to Kingsman, right? Um, so a couple, uh, sometime later, Kingsman he posts a video explaining the situation that happened. He also, also when the competition comes, that team loses. Since that video came out that Kingsman did where he explained everything, Cece has lost her sponsorships, and has been rightfully, uh, you know, been complained about by the community and everything like that. And Kingsman has gained in popularity, which I mean, it's kind of crazy that he was not popular before, considering again he is one of the best players in the world. Um, so yeah, that's the situation. Obviously, there are people that have tried to capitalize with this situation to push their own agendas, right? There's this one guy who came in and, he had said a couple months ago, right, that he didn't think that women should be allowed to play video games with men because women are too sensitive. And he was talking specifically about Marvel Rivals and a situation where he was telling his teammate to switch and she didn't, and people made fun of him for that, especially because he was bad at the game and she was good, right? And so that was and people made fun of him for that, and he tried to come in and say like this whole situation somehow vindicated his position, and Kingsman came out and said, no, this doesn't vindicate your position. The fact that Zaza and Cece were bad does has nothing to do with all women, right? That doesn't mean that's ridiculous, right? So Kingsman is a good guy. He is not playing into this culture war stuff. He is like people want to turn this into a man versus woman thing, and like one woman does something bad, so that's somehow an indictment on all women. That is dumb. Like at the end of the day, sometimes people do really dumb and cringe things. That doesn't mean that the entire minority group that they're a part of is somehow bad or evil or anything like that. Like as bad as much, Zaza might, be toxic on Marvel Rivals and not want to switch when she's supposed to, that kind of thing. But for every one woman that has done that, there's at least 10 men that have done that on Marvel Rivals. So, like, at the end of the day, let's just, calm it down. You know, the bad people have been properly punished. The good guy has won in the end. The tournament organizer has stated that he regrets, falling for, the ploy that CC and Zaza instrumented in order to get Kingsman kicked out of the tournament. So he has also, apologized for that as well. So at the end of the day, the situation has been resolved. And there's no reason to turn this into a gender war thing. And people have, for the most part, from what I've seen, done well to avoid that, despite people trying to turn into a gender war thing. So that's good. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. I thought that this was an interesting situation that I could yap about for a bit, but not too long. Something that my girlfriend might find interesting, but she also would not know anything about. So I wanted to talk to her about that. So that's the video. If you're my girlfriend, I love you. Let me know what you think next time I see you. If you're not my girlfriend, please like, comment, and subscribe, and make the world a better place in your own way. Thank you.